In the heart of Hopefield, Kansas, where cornfields stretched endlessly toward the horizon, St. Michael's Haven stood as a beacon of hope and tradition. The modest church, with its weathered wooden doors and simple stained glass windows, had been the spiritual center of the community for generations. Father Michael Matthews, a man whose gentle demeanor masked an unwavering spirit, had dedicated the past 15 years of his life to serving this small but faithful congregation. On a particularly warm autumn morning, as golden sunlight filtered through the old windows, Father Michael found himself organizing the church's storage room. The task had been long overdue, with boxes of donations and old documents piling up over the years. As he sorted through the items, his hands brushed against a dusty drawer that seemed to have been unopened for decades. The wooden handle creaked as he pulled it open, revealing a leather-bound manuscript with yellowed pages. The discovery immediately captured his attention. The manuscript's cover bore no title, only a simple cross etched into the leather. As he carefully opened it, the distinct scent of aged paper filled the air. The handwriting inside was elegant but faded, dated 1872. It contained the personal writings of Father Thomas Sullivan, the founding priest of St. Michael's Haven. As Father Michael began reading, he felt an immediate connection to the words before him. Father Sullivan wrote about his struggles to keep the church alive during the challenging early days of Hopefield, when drought and economic hardship threatened to tear the community apart. The parallels to the present were striking, especially given the current challenges facing St. Michael's Haven. The church's congregation had been dwindling over the past few years, drawn away by the allure of megachurches like the New Light Assembly, led by the charismatic David Carter. These modern churches offered state-of-the-art facilities, professional music performances, and multimedia sermons that attracted younger generations. In contrast, St. Michael's Haven maintained its traditional approach, focusing on community service and personal connections. As Father Michael delved deeper into the manuscript, he discovered passages that seemed to speak directly to his current situation. Father Sullivan wrote about the importance of maintaining faith in the face of change and the power of community bonds over material success. One particular entry caught his attention. The true strength of a church lies not in the height of its spires or the grandeur of its halls, but in the depth of its connection to the people it serves. The manuscript's discovery couldn't have come at a more crucial time. Just that morning, Father Michael had received news that 3 more families had decided to leave St. Michael's Haven for New Light Assembly. The exodus of parishioners was not just a spiritual concern, but a practical one as well. The church relied on donations to maintain its community programs, including the food bank that served dozens of local families and the after-school program that provided a safe haven for children of working parents. As the day progressed, Father Michael continued reading, finding himself increasingly absorbed in Father Sullivan's words. The manuscript revealed a deep understanding of human nature and the cyclical challenges that faith communities face. However, as he reached the final pages of what he had read so far, something unusual caught his eye, a cryptic reference to a sacred trust that the church had been founded to protect. Before he could investigate further, a knock at the storage room door interrupted his reading. Sarah Chen, one of his most dedicated parishioners, stood in the doorway with a concerned expression. "Father Michael, there's someone here to see you. They say it's urgent." Little did he know that this interruption would mark the beginning of a series of events that would test his faith, challenge his resolve, and unveil secrets that had been buried beneath the church's foundations for over a century. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. Let's continue. The visitor waiting in Father Michael's office was a man who introduced himself as James Morrison, a real estate developer representing Progress Development Corporation. Dressed in an impeccable suit that seemed out of place in the humble church office, Morrison carried himself with an air of calculated confidence. His presence immediately filled the room with an uncomfortable tension. "Father Michael," Morrison began, his voice smooth as polished marble, "I'll be direct. My company is very interested in acquiring this property. We believe we could transform it into something truly beneficial for the community, a modern community center that could serve thousands." He pulled out a folder containing architectural renderings of a gleaming glass and steel structure that bore no resemblance to the current church. Father Michael listened politely but felt a growing unease as Morrison outlined the proposal. The offer was generous, far above the property's market value, but something about it felt wrong. The developer's eyes never quite met his, and there was an underlying urgency in his tone that seemed at odds with his casual demeanor. As Morrison spoke, Father Michael's thoughts drifted to the manuscript he'd just discovered. Father Sullivan's words about protecting the church's sacred trust echoed in his mind. "Mr. Morrison," he interrupted gently, "while I appreciate your offer, St. Michael's Haven isn't just a property. It's a living history of this community, a spiritual home to generations of families." Morrison's pleasant expression flickered for just a moment. "Father, I understand sentiment, but you must see that times are changing. Churches like this, well, they're becoming obsolete. Just look at what Reverend Carter has accomplished with New Light Assembly. That's the future of worship." Before Father Michael could respond, Sarah appeared at the door again, this time with a strange envelope in her hand. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but this was just delivered. It's marked urgent." The envelope was plain white, with no return address, only Father Michael's name written in an unsteady hand. Excusing himself, Father Michael opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message: "The walls have ears. The manuscript must be protected. They're watching." The message was unsigned, but at the bottom was a small symbol, a cross within a circle, identical to one he'd noticed in Father Sullivan's manuscript. Morrison cleared his throat impatiently, drawing Father Michael's attention back to the present. "I'll leave these documents with you to review," he said, standing to leave. "But I should mention, our offer has a deadline. 2 weeks. After that." He let the sentence hang in the air like a barely veiled threat. After Morrison left, Father Michael returned to the storage room, his mind racing. The manuscript seemed heavier now, weighted with unknown significance. As he began reading again, a loose page fell from between the sheets. It contained a hand-drawn map of the church grounds, with several areas marked with the same cross-within-circle symbol from the anonymous note. That evening, as Father Michael prepared for the weekly community dinner, he noticed unfamiliar cars parked across from the church. Their windows were tinted, making it impossible to see who was inside. The sight sent a chill down his spine, remembering the warning note's words about being watched. The community dinner was usually a time of fellowship and joy, but tonight felt different. As Father Michael observed his congregation, he noticed whispered conversations and worried glances. Carol Thompson, who had been attending St. Michael's Haven for over 40 years, approached him with tears in her eyes. "Father, I hate to tell you this, but there are rumors." She hesitated. "People are saying the church will be closed soon, that it's already been sold. David Carter announced at New Light Assembly that they're planning to expand their ministry into this part of town." Father Michael reassured her as best he could, but her words troubled him deeply. How had Carter heard about Morrison's offers so quickly? And why would he announce expansion plans before any deal had been made? As he pondered these questions, he realized that the manuscript in his office might hold more than just historical significance. It might be the key to understanding the forces aligning against St. Michael's Haven. The following morning, Father Michael arrived at the church earlier than usual, determined to investigate the locations marked on the mysterious map. The rising sun cast long shadows across the church grounds as he began his search, starting with the oldest section of the building. The first marker on the map led him to a seemingly ordinary wall in the church's small library. As he examined the area more closely, he noticed something peculiar, a slight discoloration in the ancient wallpaper, forming a pattern similar to the cross-within-circle symbol. Just as he was about to investigate further, he heard footsteps approaching. He turned to find Elena Rodriguez, the church's elderly caretaker, standing in the doorway with an expression that suggested she knew more than she was letting on. "I've been waiting for someone to find it," Elena said softly, her eyes fixed on the wall. "My grandfather was caretaker here too, and he told me stories." She approached the wall and pressed gently on a specific spot. To Father Michael's amazement, a small panel shifted, revealing a hidden compartment containing another book, this one bound in red leather with gold trim. As they carefully extracted the book, Elena explained that her family had been connected to St. Michael's Haven for 4 generations. This church was never just a place of worship, Father. It was built as a sanctuary in every sense of the word. The founders created a network of churches across the country, each protecting something valuable, not gold or jewels, but knowledge and truth. The Red Book contained detailed accounts of the church's early years, including references to a group called the Guardians of Faith who had worked to protect religious communities from being exploited by powerful business interests. Father Sullivan, it seemed, had been one of these guardians. Their discovery was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor, David Carter himself. The megachurch leader's expensive suit and perfectly styled hair contrasted sharply with the humble surroundings. "Hope I'm not interrupting anything important," he said, though his tone suggested he knew exactly what he was interrupting. Father Michael quickly tucked the Red Book out of sight as Carter explained the purpose of his visit. "I heard about Morrison's offer," Carter said, pacing the room. "I have a counter-proposal. Merge your congregation with New Light Assembly. We'll preserve some of the historical elements, and you'll have a position on our leadership board." As Carter spoke, Father Michael noticed something that made his blood run cold, a ring on Carter's finger bearing the same cross-within-circle symbol, but inverted. When their eyes met, Carter smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The world is changing, Michael. Small churches like this, they're fighting against the tide of progress. Why resist the inevitable?" Before Father Michael could respond, the church door opened again, and a group of his parishioners entered, led by Sarah Chen. They had come early to prepare for a community outreach event, but their arrival felt providential. Among them was Marcus Thompson, a local historian who had always shown a deep interest in the church's past. As Carter made his exit, making sure to shake hands with each parishioner, Marcus pulled Father Michael aside. "I've been doing research," he whispered. "There's more to New Light Assembly than people know. They've been buying up historical churches all across the Midwest, but no one knows what happens to the buildings afterward. They just disappear from records." The revelation sent Father Michael's mind racing. The manuscript, the hidden book, the warnings, they were all pieces of a puzzle that was slowly taking shape. But as he looked around at his faithful congregation, now bustling about their morning tasks, he realized that solving this mystery wasn't just about preserving history. It was about protecting the very soul of a community that had endured for generations. A startling discovery changed everything one rainy evening at St. Michael's Haven. As Father Michael and Marcus examined the Red Book more closely, they found a series of photographs tucked between its pages. The images, yellowed with age, showed a younger David Carter standing alongside Father Michael's own mentor, Father Gregory, who had guided him toward priesthood 20 years ago. Both men were wearing the guardian symbol, and they appeared to be close friends. The revelation hit Father Michael like a thunderbolt. Father Gregory had never mentioned knowing Carter, yet here was undeniable proof of their connection. Even more shocking was a letter dated just 5 years ago, written by Father Gregory himself, addressed to both Father Michael and David Carter. "When the time comes, you two must work together. The true threat is far greater than either of you realize." Sarah Chen, who had been helping organize church documents, suddenly burst into the room with news that would further complicate the situation. "Father, you need to see this." She was carrying a laptop showing a live news feed. Progress Development Corporation was making headlines, not for their real estate dealings, but for their alleged connections to a shadowy organization called the Reformers, which had been systematically erasing historical religious sites across the country. As they watched the report, James Morrison's face appeared on screen, but not as the confident developer they knew. He was being led away in handcuffs, accused of orchestrating a massive scheme to destroy historical religious documents. The reporter mentioned that the investigation had been triggered by anonymous tips from someone inside a major megachurch organization. Father Michael's phone rang. It was David Carter. "We need to meet. Now. There's something you don't understand about all of this." His voice carried none of its usual smooth confidence. Instead, it trembled with genuine fear. "What you found in that book, it's only half the story. The Guardians of Faith split into two factions decades ago. What's happening now, it's all connected to that divide." Elena Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing everything, finally spoke up. "My grandfather used to tell me about the split. One group believed in preserving the old ways at any cost, while the other thought adaptation was necessary for survival. But neither side was entirely right or entirely wrong." Before Father Michael could process this information, Marcus made another discovery in the Red Book, a hidden compartment in its spine containing a small key and a note from Father Gregory. "The truth lies beneath the altar. When you find it, trust no one until you see the complete picture." That evening, as storm clouds gathered over Hopefield, Father Michael, Sarah, and Marcus gathered in the church's main hall. Using the key, they carefully moved the altar, revealing a trapdoor that had been concealed for generations. The wood was worn, but the lock was well maintained, suggesting that someone had been accessing it recently. As they descended the narrow stairs beneath the altar, their flashlights revealed something completely unexpected: a vast archive room filled with computers and modern surveillance equipment, all bearing the crossed circle symbol. On the main screen was a map showing hundreds of churches across the country, each marked with either a red or blue dot. St. Michael's Haven was marked in purple, the only one of its kind. A voice behind them made them all jump. "I was wondering when you'd finally find this place." They turned to find David Carter standing in the doorway, but he wasn't alone. James Morrison was with him, very much not in custody, along with Father Gregory himself, whom Father Michael hadn't seen in years. The elderly priest looked exactly as Michael remembered him, but his eyes carried a weight of responsibility that Michael had never noticed before. "The news report was staged," Carter explained, his voice heavy with meaning. "We needed to flesh out the real threat. And now, thanks to your discovery of the manuscript, we finally have a chance to finish what started over a century ago." Father Gregory stepped forward, placing a hand on Father Michael's shoulder. "My boy, it's time you learned the true purpose of St. Michael's Haven, and why both sides have been watching you all along." In the soft glow of the underground facility's monitors, Father Gregory began explaining the truth that had been hidden for generations. St. Michael's Haven wasn't just another church in the Guardians network, it was the linchpin of a grand design, carefully orchestrated across centuries to protect something far more valuable than mere historical documents. The split in the Guardians wasn't about preservation versus progress, Father Gregory revealed, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. It was about power versus purpose. The Reformers believed they could use the Church's historical influence to shape society according to their vision. We've been working to prevent that, but we needed someone pure of heart to take on the mantle, someone who would choose what's right over what's easy. David Carter stepped forward, his usual polished demeanor replaced by genuine humility. "My megachurch was a cover, Michael. We needed to appear to be part of the problem to track the Reformers' movements. Every time they targeted a historical church, we were there, protecting what really mattered, the people and their faith." James Morrison nodded, adding, "The offer to buy the church was a test. We needed to know if you would stand firm in your convictions, even when faced with overwhelming pressure. You passed, Michael. You never wavered from your principles." As they spoke, Sarah Chen was examining the computer systems, her eyes growing wide. "These networks are tracking more than just churches," she gasped. "They're monitoring community outreach programs, charitable activities, every instance of people coming together to help others. It's like a map of human goodness." Father Gregory smiled. "Exactly. The true purpose of the Guardians was never about buildings or documents. It was about protecting and nurturing humanity's capacity for compassion and community. Each church in our network serves as a beacon, inspiring others to maintain their faith in human goodness." Suddenly, the monitors began flashing red. Elena burst into the room, out of breath. "They're here. The Reformers, they've surrounded the church." The security cameras showed dozens of vehicles converging on St. Michael's Haven, led by a familiar face, the local news anchor who had reported Morrison's fake arrest. "They must have been tracking us," Carter muttered, quickly moving to a control panel. "They know we've discovered the command center." The screen showed more vehicles arriving, filled with people in business suits carrying what looked like sophisticated electronic equipment. Father Michael watched in astonishment as Carter and Morrison efficiently coordinated a response, sending encrypted messages to other churches in the network. Father Gregory turned to Michael with urgent intensity. "The next few minutes will determine everything. The reformers think this is their moment to seize control of the network, but they don't understand its true power." Marcus, who had been quietly analyzing the Red Book, suddenly looked up. "The festival," he exclaimed. Father Sullivan's writings weren't just about protecting the church, they were instructions. The annual Hope Days Festival, it's not just a celebration. It's a gathering of power. Father Michael's mind raced back to every festival he'd organized, every community gathering that had brought people together in faith and fellowship. Each one had strengthened the bonds of community, created lasting connections, inspired acts of kindness that rippled outward in countless ways. As the reformers began their approach toward the church, Father Gregory placed an old brass key in Michael's hand. "This isn't about winning a fight, Michael. It's about proving what we've known all along, that true power lies not in control, but in connection. The festival is tomorrow, and for the first time in a century, all the pieces are in place. The choice of what to do with that power, it rests with you." The weight of history and responsibility settled on Father Michael's shoulders as he looked at the faces around him, Sarah's determination, Marcus's scholarly excitement, Elena's quiet wisdom, Carter's reformed purpose, and Father Gregory's unwavering faith. The manuscript had led him here, but the next step would determine not just the fate of St. Michael's Haven, but the future of everything the Guardians had worked to protect. The morning of the Hope Days Festival dawned bright and clear, as if nature itself understood the significance of what was about to unfold. Father Michael stood at the church entrance, the brass key warm in his hand, watching as the community began to gather. But this year's festival was different. Members from every church in the region were arriving, including the entire congregation of New Light Assembly, all drawn by an inexplicable urge to be part of something greater than themselves. The reformers had maintained their position throughout the night, their vehicles forming a ring around the church grounds. Their leader, the news anchor Catherine Wells, approached Father Michael with a confident smile. "You can't possibly think this little festival will change anything," she said. "The world has moved beyond such simple gatherings." But Father Michael understood now what Father Sullivan's manuscript had been trying to tell him all along. Every passage about community, every story about faith and perseverance, they weren't just historical accounts. They were pieces of a blueprint showing how to awaken something that had been building for generations. As the festival began, something extraordinary started to happen. The music from the church choirs seemed to resonate with unusual power, touching hearts and stirring memories. Children from different congregations played together while their parents, who had been separated by theological differences, found themselves engaged in genuine conversation. The barriers between communities began to dissolve. David Carter, standing beside Father Michael, watched in amazement as members of his megachurch mingled with the traditionally reserved St. Michael's congregation. "It's happening," he whispered. "Just as Father Gregory said it would. The network is activating." The brass key in Father Michael's hand began to grow warmer, and he knew it was time. Walking to the center of the festival grounds, he gathered everyone's attention. The manuscript had shown him what to do next, not through explicit instructions, but through the wisdom of generations of community builders who had understood that true power comes from unity, not division. As he raised the key, the sun caught it at just the right angle, sending ribbons of light across the gathering. Father Michael began to speak, not just to his congregation but to everyone present, including the reformers who had come to stop them. He shared the story of St. Michael's Haven, not as a tale of secret societies and hidden powers, but as a testament to the enduring strength of human connection. Catherine Wells and her team found their electronic equipment mysteriously malfunctioning, but more importantly, They found themselves caught up in the wave of genuine human warmth and community spirit that was sweeping through the festival. The very thing they had dismissed as outdated and powerless was proving to be the strongest force of all. The key's purpose finally became clear. It wasn't meant to unlock any physical door, but to serve as a symbol of the choice each person must make between isolation and community, between control and connection. As Father Michael finished speaking, he held out the key, offering it to Catherine Wells herself. The gesture caught her completely off guard. In that moment, faced with the genuine offer of inclusion rather than opposition, something changed in her expression. The years of calculated manipulation fell away, revealing someone who had simply lost their way in pursuit of what they thought was right. Sarah Chen, who had been monitoring the underground command center, emerged with amazing news. The network map was showing unprecedented levels of activity, not just in their location, but in every church, synagogue, mosque, and community center across the country. The simple act of genuine community gathering had created a ripple effect that was spreading far beyond Hopefield. Father Gregory appeared beside Father Michael, tears in his eyes. This is what we protected all along, not the buildings, not the documents, but the human capacity for connection. The reformers thought they could control it, but you've shown that it can only be nurtured and shared. As the sun began to set on the most remarkable Hope Days festival in St. Michael's Haven's history, the grounds were filled with people who had arrived as strangers but were leaving as friends. The reformers' vehicles departed one by one, their occupants changed not by defeat but by the realization that what they had been fighting against was exactly what they had been searching for all along. Father Michael returned to his office that evening, the manuscript open on his desk. The final pages, which had seemed cryptic before, now made perfect sense. Father Sullivan's last entry read, "The greatest power lies not in what we keep hidden, but in what we choose to share." The true miracle of faith is not in the mysteries we protect, but in the communities we build. Looking out over the church grounds, where cleanup crews from every congregation worked together in the gathering dusk, Father Michael smiled. St. Michael's Haven would continue to change and grow, not by fighting against the tide of progress, but by showing how traditional values of community and connection could light the way forward. The manuscript had led him not to a conclusion, but to a new beginning, one that promised hope not just for his small church, but for all those seeking to build bridges in an increasingly divided world. End of story. Dear readers, thank you for joining us on this inspiring journey through the halls of St. Michael's Haven. If this tale of faith, community, and unexpected alliances has touched your heart, we invite you to be part of our growing family of storytellers and listeners. Subscribe to our channel to receive more powerful stories that explore the depths of human connection and the triumph of unity over division. Leave a like if you believe in the power of community, and share your own stories of hope and transformation in the comments below. Together, we can create a network of storytelling that, like Father Michael's festival, spreads light and understanding across our world. Until our next story, keep faith in the power of human connection.